We have a few minutes for sure to take some questions. We need a little bit of time at this end just to organize ourselves for that. And maybe some of you online need some time to think about your questions. So we're going to show you a 5 or 6 minute video while you assemble questions and we get ourselves organized at this end. And so I'll come back to you in 6 or 7 minutes. So we're back for our closing session, everyone. And many of you have stayed with us for the whole day. It's been very impressive. I don't know exactly what the numbers are right now, but it has varied between 150 and 180 roughly during the course of the day. So congratulations to you. It has certainly been stimulating for me in this room and learning a lot from what a diversity of presenters, and just so appreciated it all. We have a chance to entertain a few of the questions that you've been submitting or that you may have submitted in the last few minutes. I don't have any in front of me right now, so I'm going to take one from a gentleman who didn't plug in today, but connected with me yesterday about this. He's some of you in the archaeology area will know the name. His name is Tom Shea. He was a professor in anthropology and archaeology at the University of Manitoba. And so he's plugged in with me yesterday from East Yorkshire in the UK. And he brought to my attention that there was a chunk of land for sale just to the north of the Lockport excavation, the archaeological site at Lockport, and he wondered if there was any kind of reaction to this kind of sale for presumably residential purposes so close to an archaeological resource. And I don't know, Amber, if you're still connected with us, but if you maybe want to take a crack at commenting on Tom's observation.
Yes, I'm here. We did go ahead and we've brought this to the attention of the Historic Resources Branch. We forwarded on Tom Shea's concerns as well as our own.
Excellent. Well, I'll pass that along to him. I'm looking at other folks here. Any questions that have come in at all? Is there anybody? Here's something we could do, folks, if you would like. If there's any of you that would like to make a short comment or question or pose a short comment or question verbally, your mic can be turned on. You would have to identify yourself, I guess, by putting your hand up. And when you do so and you're given the mic, you will be given 2 minutes, and then we might get rather harsh about cutting you off. Have you got anybody showing up, Sonny? No? All right. That's all right. This can...
If you want to fill some time, we can run another video.
Yeah, we've got someone now. Laura Lee?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Laura Lee.
Hi, everyone. I first of all want to give a shout out to Ross Metcalf. He was my principal and a good friend. I've got my grandson in the background here. I recently retired, and I'm the president of the Woodlands Pioneer Museum out here. And we had, I just wanted to first of all say that this entire day has been fabulous, being such a very small little museum, and just being able to listen to all the people. And I've been taking mass amounts of notes and hope to be in touch with some people individually. But just in terms of the education piece, recently we have actually been participating and sort of collaborating with a past educator, and we've been designing a bit of a virtual curriculum that matches our museum to the grade 5-6 social studies program. And of course, COVID interrupted the whole thing. We were supposed to be having a meeting with our school division and such like in June. So it hasn't quite got off the ground yet, but I know it is coming, and I just wanted those that are listening to know that that I think that technology and sort of making things more available to teachers and school boards and just sort of from anywhere around Manitoba, if we can reach out through our technology, this is most likely the way. After 36 and a half years of teaching, I can honestly say that our today's learners are very much in touch with technology, and a little quick trip to a museum and then follow-up stuff that connects up with curriculum and the local history is something that we are sort of hoping to engage our youth and the greater youth of Manitoba as time goes on. So again, thank you so very much. I have just loved this day.
Thank you, Lauralee. That was excellent. Do we have anybody else?
I'd like to follow up on what Lauralee said about curriculum matching.
Go ahead, Bill.
We've had a 13-year run of a program called AIM Day in Manitoba with the Air Cadets. It's a combination of industry, civil, and military aviation interests that have taken a day at the airport to teach kids that are kind of concentrating on the grade 6 science modules of space and flight. And we've had tremendous success. We've had up to 900 kids a day that are toured through a series of 6 modules to learn about more what is in their textbooks, but that they're seeing in real life. So in fact, 2 years ago, Prince Charles toured with us. So we had a tremendous exposure for that as well.
That's a wonderful story, Bill. Thank you. Anybody else? Scandinavian Cultural Association? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. Does the cultural association such as ours, we're not a museum per se, but we're presently for Cultural Days creating a virtual museum where we're going to have our stories that our people have recorded on our part of our virtual Cultural Days. Would on the spot be helpful to us?
Is Ross Hebert still on the line at all? No, he's not. Well, we will have to try and get that question to him, I guess, because he's no longer connected with us right now.
Can I email him?
Yes, absolutely.
So if I found his email address, thank you.
Have them contact one of us and put it in touch.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's been a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have another one? Go ahead.
Hi, it's Shelley Sweeney at the, and I'm retired from the University of Manitoba Archives and Special Collections. And I've noticed in the chat, a lot of people have been talking about Generation Z and millennials not wanting to volunteer and so on. And I'm wondering if there is some way that we can ask them what they see their role in heritage being, and ask them what they would see as the future of heritage. I mean, part of it is that it probably is not going to say the same as the boomer generation and maybe even the generation behind us, but maybe there's some way to get their input to find out, you know, if it's possible to, you know, find a new way of supporting heritage in our communities. So I just throw that out, and if there's anybody that has any ideas, it'd be interesting to hear that.
Of course, Shelley. Well, thank you very much for that. It is always good to ask instead of assume, isn't it? Does anybody else wish to comment on that? Do we have any other requests to comment? Okay. There are just a few more steps for us to go through before we sort of wrap up the day, folks. It's been an interesting experience for me working with this technology. I want to acknowledge the work of Sunny here in the room, who has kept us going. Thank you. And Gordon, your help as well, Gordon McBean. I really appreciate that. He's behind 2 or 3 different screens right now. Randy James for tracking the questions and providing them to the folks that were moderating at the time. And very vigorous clapping going on in the room, and to Cheryl Mann, who has been taking notes. Now, in addition to her taking notes, I've been consulting with her periodically over the course of the day, because I've been asked to kind of make some observations of my own that really stuck out for me. And I'm commenting, I suppose, almost from the outside, not because I don't care about historic resources or that sort of thing, but I'm not actually a member of any of the 8 organizations, and perhaps that gives my observations an interesting perspective. The first things I'll draw attention to are they're more in the order of the things we heard today, and then I'll try to do a little bit more summary at the end. So, right off the start with our keynote speaker, she said something really early on that stuck with me, which was, we've gone beyond opportunities, it's come to imperatives. And she didn't spend a lot of time explaining what she meant, although that did emerge a little bit in her presentation. But that particular thing, I think that was really meant to impel us and get us going. She also said we are in the people business. And I think that was also really important. She drew incredibly strong links with sustainable development. And she also drew attention to some survey work, which showed what will motivate, probably when we're interacting with governments, what's really going to motivate them. She managed to tie, and she didn't do this in so many words, but she really managed to tie heritage protection to social justice. And that actually emerged later on over the course of the day as well. We then went to hear from the 8 provincial heritage associations, and 3 or 4 challenges and 3 or 4 opportunities emerged for me with a fair amount of consistency. The need to maintain, expand, extend the volunteer base in the face of the aging demographic, all kinds of financial issues. One of the ones that stuck out for me was when you're forced into a lot of fundraising, it takes time away from the reason the organization actually exists. And membership is dropping for some of the organizations. Many of them are highly dependent on membership. And that is dropping for many, and that's a challenge. It's interesting that later on, even in our last closing session, we heard some strategies about how to address that. In terms of the opportunities, I think everybody seemed to agree that new technology was certainly an opportunity. It brings with it limitations, but also incredible opportunities. Partnerships also emerged as being one of the ways forward that would be highly recommended. Almost all of the organizations mentioned collaboration. And that's an awfully good thing given what this day was supposed to be about. And the notion, not the notion of, but the value of endowment funds also came out in those presentations and continued in later presentations. We then had a sustainability panel, and it was interesting that endowment funds came through in that one loud and clear. We had a really good story of a partnership in one of the communities in Winnipeg, and how important the community mobilization was in that case, and how important it was to build a heritage protection process that engendered trust. And that in turn, translated into community leadership. That's just a really interesting cause and effect in my view. The panel, it's interesting if you look at the numbers of people that looked in on the day, participated, listened in on the day. The numbers soared for the panel on indigenizing heritage in Manitoba. There are some lessons certainly that came out of that. Acknowledging the mistakes of the past was certainly an important piece. Another phrase that stuck with me was decolonizing education, and we had a couple of the panelists emphasizing that. Communities reclaiming their heritage and the empowerment and pride that came from them doing that. Very, very important. And to look at the Indigenous contribution to current society, not as a dark chapter, but as an enlightened one. We had an opportunity to look at rural Manitoba and the unique and sometimes overlapping challenges that organizations and heritage organizations and museums and so on in rural Manitoba face. Not surprisingly, collaboration as a potential solution certainly emerged. We heard support for taking a regional approach and support for a heritage coalition, but with some sort of caveat, I guess you could say, which is not an ad hoc one, a planned one, an organized one, a strategic one, not superficial. And a phrase that will definitely stick with me for a while is remember that heritage protection is not a competition. I thought that was really important. There was a link made also to the importance, the link between heritage protection and quality of life, and that is a piece that sells better. And so that one really stuck with me as well. Our closing panel on youth, technology, and sustainability. The future of history, making it accessible and of more interest to more recent generations than mine. The opportunities in Winnipeg, in the Exchange District in Winnipeg, that was fascinating to me. And building on the circular economy, make history a mystery. That was a good one too. Recognize that we learn in different ways, and that's part of the way we can appeal to younger people, is acknowledging that. When I try to bring forward sort of as much as possible some common threads, and the collaboration piece, all kinds of reasons to collaborate. You folks are going to go from this session into a meeting of the continuing meeting of the 8 PHAs and looking at ways in which you can collaborate. And my goodness, you've got a lot of support for that today and a lot of encouragement for that today. It was noted that one of the values of collaboration and a coalition is that it could be efficient, it could be nimble, it could be informed. Think of what you would collaborate. Why would you collaborate? You would collaborate to address shared challenges, whether that's in the volunteer area, whether it's funding and fundraising, whether it's reaching out and communication, to share and multiply your competencies, to be a stronger voice of advocacy, because you need a stronger voice. And it's interesting, I've just, in other areas that I've worked, not heritage, I've just seen how important it is. You need to bring the voices together, and it becomes a multiplication factor. It really does. To build, you could collaborate to build a regional approach in rural Manitoba. And here's an interesting, just a side piece. There's a fellow in Winnipeg here, Rob Stanzel, who sees himself and presents himself and is recognized as somewhat of an expert in microbreweries, okay? Now, I'm not raising it because I think you're thirsty at the moment.
We are.
But so it's interesting. He went around to all of them, and what he did, there's 12 of them in Winnipeg, okay? And what he did is he created a postcard. And every microbrewery has this postcard, and every postcard has all 12 of them listed on it, and plus a recommended brew. And it is the size of a postcard, and all 12 of them possess it. So it's just an example of those places are in presumed competition with each other, right? But they also, they share a clientele, and you guys share a clientele too. So it's just a small thing that was done that where you didn't expect to see collaboration. I just found that really interesting, and in a distant way perhaps has some application for you folks. You can extend collaboration into partnerships, whether that's with the private sector, with communities. Build and implement a trusted process. You won't do that without collaboration. And once that trusted process is there to encourage community engagement, to encourage community empowerment, and thus to encourage community ownership and pride. You have an opportunity to reach out together for your own renewal, each of the individual organizations' renewal, to expand your membership, to expand your volunteer base, to encourage contributions, whether they be to endowments or to community foundations. Those are some of the things, and I guess to a certain extent, I do a fair amount of facilitation, and so I'm known as a process guy, so that's why I focused on the collaboration piece, okay? And I really, truly wish you well with it. It's a huge challenge, but it pays dividend. It's not easy, right? It's not easy. You have to give to get in a collaboration, but you get more than you give. And I think those are the things to keep in mind. Now, I'd like to go back at the end of each session and just go back to the objectives we started with at the start of the day, and confirm that in your views, and I'm looking at the folks in the room here, but of course it applies to you folks that are still online. I want to go back to the objectives and make sure that we've met them. So the first one was to identify some common themes amongst the PHAs relating to heritage and history in Manitoba. I think we did that today, right? To identify present and future opportunities and challenges that will be beneficial for the delivery of heritage-related programs and the management of heritage resources around Manitoba. We got lots of insights into that today, right? Yeah. To foster improved collaboration and communication among PHAs and smaller heritage facilities around the province. Well, certainly among the PHAs, and you started to build some more connections with some of the smaller Manitoba ones online today. The last one implies work that has to happen to a certain extent after today. And that is to prepare a white paper on the state of heritage in Manitoba and its development over the next 10 to 20 years toward a long-term vision for Manitoba's 200th anniversary in 2070. All I can say to that is there was a lot of fodder for that paper today, okay? Yes, there's still lots of thought and strategizing about how to put it together, but the fodder's there. I want to thank all the participants, all the panelists, all the participants. We needed in the early going a little bit of patience with the technology. But at the end of the day, it served us pretty reasonably well. And I think that overall things went really well, but I think the level of interest out there is quite impressive. And hats off to all of you, because the bulk of you are volunteers, and that's always wonderful to see. I now want to back away from the microphone, turn it over to either Gordon or Cindy, to close things off and talk to you about next steps. But from my perspective, just thank you all. It was a delight to be involved in this.
Thank you. So my final 2 minutes is to say this summit was our first ever. We put a big leap of faith. I worked with an amazing group of provincial heritage agencies. And I think, again, most will know that we have limited resources. We do want to thank again the province of Manitoba and the Winnipeg Foundation for their funding to help support to make this summit happen. But I think a personal note is to be able to work with everybody and put a face to an organization instead of just looking at the Manitoba Historical Society or the Genealogical Society or the Archaeological Society and all the museums out there. I think we started to realize that these are stories we're sharing. We all have passion. And so this summit is a testament to the popularity today for the public to have said across Manitoba that you think this is a great thing and that we should continue to do this. And we're listening, and this collaboration will continue. We can guarantee you it'll continue. There will be an archives of the summit and the video presentations, break videos. And we also encourage for all of the updates, go to the Manitoba Heritage Summit website on a regular basis. We're going to be empowered now to move forward for our next second annual summit in 2021. But I think as our first ever in celebration of Manitoba's 150th anniversary, again, thank you so much to all the panelists and all our moderators and all our PHA members. We couldn't have done this without that wonderful word again, our two words, collaboration and partnerships. We're all very passionate people, and we thank our audience the most for spending the day with us or spending part of your time with us, because we know you know as much as we know heritage matters. Thank you.